Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am joined today by Dale. Dale, we talk often. I don't know that I see you on camera as much as we text and talk, but it's good to see you as we enter the 2026 cycle. How are things?
Yeah, they're good. It never stops when you're draft guys like us, Jim, and everybody that's tuning in to watch this. One starts, the next one. Like I was already the past month or so winding down for the 25 draft before it even got here. It's like, all right, time to shift focus to 26. You want to be ahead of the game. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, so we are doing our summer scouting, and as Dale said, it never stops. So as Dale and I sit here and podcast, and we are recording this on Mother's Day.
Happy
so
Mother's Day.
The draft finished, I think it was 15 days ago. I don't even know if it was 15. Maybe it was only 8. I don't know. We're in like this really weird no man's land of the past draft and then the 2026 draft starting. But we're going to go over players Dale has watched and added to his board. And I believe we're covering the offensive gamut with this recording. But Dale, I think we're going to start with quarterbacks, right?
Yes, sir. And I'll just start at the top of and this is early, and that's what you always tell people. This isn't meant to be like, this guy's number one, and he's going to be number one. I might watch a couple more games because most of these guys I've watched, maybe 2 games of at this point. So just to preface that, it's a very early watch list. But the guy that I have, because he's played a lot of football, and I'll also say I don't have like Arch Manning. I don't have Sam Levitt on my list. I think those guys may be in the next class. But if they're balling out and they decide to go out, I'm definitely going to be watching them. I already watched some of them, but they're just not on my particular list. They'll be on a lot of other people's. But Garrett Nussmeier is my top guy. And as we do this, I want to give you everyone like a school, or here's a game that he played, that one of his better games, one that I watched that I think you'll be able to see a lot of good things about him and some of the bad things, some turnovers. So the Oklahoma tape was one that I say for Garrett Nussmeier. And it's fun because for this draft cycle, you get to see guys on the defense for Oklahoma in that same game making plays like R. Mason Thomas, Grayson Holton. But it shows what I like about Nuss in that game as well. His arm strength, anticipation. He had several deep balls that he hit, just perfect. And then his toughness. So he was actually knocked out of that game. I believe it was sometime in the first quarter. But he comes back in, I think, before halftime even. Drilled from the blind side, injured. Like I said, he comes back in and absolutely balls out. It just showed what kind of player he is. He's also the son of Doug Nussmeier, who's the Saints offensive coordinator. So he's got that football background, that high IQ, all that kind of stuff you want to see as well. He needs to cut down on turnovers, but as of right now, he's my early favorite for quarterback 1. But it's a fun class. And the next guy I honestly want to talk about is Lenoir Sellers from South Carolina. Good chance he could be number 1, and he's the guy who could, go back to school again. He's got a couple years of eligibility left. But, man, his tape is just fun to watch. He's an absolute magician. He's tough to break down. He's listed at like 243, so he's got a tremendous lower half. These guys will think they have him in their grasp, and he gets out of it. And one of the games I watched, because a ton of great defensive prospects and a school that's going to be mentioned throughout this process a million times, and that's Clemson. So Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, those names that you're going to hear, some of the top defensive players in this next draft cycle. He was able to lead South Carolina to a 17-14 win. He only had 164 passing yards, but he had 166 rushing. So he's that dual threat, elite prospect. He's got a strong arm as well. There's just a lot to like with Lenoir Sellers. So it won't surprise me at all if he's a lot of people's number 1 quarterback to start this year, because he is exciting to watch, and he's must-watch football on Saturdays or whatever other day a game is on in college football. Third guy a lot of people know about. He was more accurate last year. It's Drew Aller from Penn State. He just has to be more consistent. His footwork, everything. You watch games like Ohio State, those have not been his best games. But one I would tell people to put on to watch him, the good and the bad, is the USC game. So 391 yards. Incredible. I mean, this is a guy who's I believe he's about 6'5", 240. So another big bodied, strong arm guy that type that the NFL likes. And he can move a little bit. He just doesn't always do it. But if he needs to pick up some yards with his legs, he can. But it's a put up or shut up. Here's a guy I could see being a top 5 pick for a team. He could also be one of those guys like Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck that completely fall in the draft next year. So this is put up or shut up time for him for Penn State. They got both the running backs, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. They got some transfers at wide receiver. Stacked group, but 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 391 yards. It's just him in a nutshell. Too many turnovers, inconsistent, but his good is really good and his bad is really bad. Next guy on the list is Cade Klubnik from Clemson. And I would say watch that same game. Watch him versus South Carolina. That was one of the last games of the season that Clemson lost 17-14, but he had 280 yards, a couple rushing touchdowns, and then also the conference championship and the playoff run. So if you want to watch Cade Klubnik, just go to his last 3 games of the year because he was really coming on. He had 262 yards against SMU with 4 touchdowns. And then against Texas in a loss, he still had 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. He kept them in that game. And Texas was loaded with talent, as we've seen a ton of their guys get drafted just a couple weeks ago. He's a 5-star recruit, played a ton of football, another guy that can move. That's one thing with this quarterback class. There's a bunch of guys that can get out and run that are dual threats. And he's got a really good quick release. He gets the ball out fast, gets it to his receivers like Antonio Williams, who is another guy to discuss, and they got some younger guys that'll be in other classes. John Mateer, next guy. This is a guy who was at Washington State, but he will be transferring to Oklahoma this year. His game versus Boise State is one I would tell people that they should want to go and watch. He had sacked 8 times, but still threw for over 300 yards, 70% completion rate. And then San Jose State was just a fun game to actually watch. It's a double overtime thriller, 54-52. So if you just like football, you're going to love that, but also watching John Mateer as a quarterback. He had 390 passing yards and over 100 rushing, which shows what kind of dual threat. Now, he's a little smaller. He's like 6'1", and sometimes I think he needs to stay in the pocket a little more and look for his receivers. He takes off running a little too much, so there's some concerns with maybe durability. Will he stay healthy going forward because he's not the biggest guy in the world, and I don't want him running all the time. But it's going to be fun to watch him at Oklahoma this year. Then an opposite body type, a much bigger guy, and this is going to be a lot of people's favorites as well, Fernando Mendoza. I think a lot of people are starting to talk about him. 6'5", 225. He's been very accurate. He played at California the last couple of years. This year he's transferring to Indiana. So to watch him playing with Kirk Cignetti, the coach there, and picking up where Curtis Rourke left off, and Indiana was playing some good football, I think that'll be must watch. And Stanford was one of the games I watched of him. It shows his ability. This kid, I mean, he's big, and he is not afraid to stand in there and deliver the football. I was talking about Mateer wants to take off early. That is not Mendoza. Mendoza will stand in there and take a hit right in the mouth and deliver the football accurately. So I really like that about him. He can also run when necessary. He's not as athletic as, Lenore Sellers and some of these guys that I talked about, but he's a very fun prospect. And I think he's going to continue climbing draft boards throughout this process, especially just picturing him in the Indiana offense with Elijah Surratt and some of the weapons they have. So that's kind of the 6 that I wanted to touch on the most. And then my list will have 15 total guys on it, but that's the kind of the top 6 for me right now that I wanted to hit on. Miller Moss transferring to Louisville from USC. Carson Beck transferring to Miami. Down season, a lot of people know about Carson Beck, transferred from Georgia. Diego Pavia, fun prospect. That's his 8th year. It's like his 6th year of college football at Vanderbilt. Connor Wegman transferring to Houston. Mark Gronowski, 4-year starter at South Dakota State, who was winning championships, competing with like North Dakota State, who wins a lot of titles in that division. He's transferred to Iowa. Luke Altmaier with Illinois. That's a fun player that I think people want to keep an eye on. They had a really good season. I think that could be a sneaky playoff team. Jalen Daniels, dual threat from Kansas, 6-year guy, 57% completion percentage. So I don't love that about him. Kyron Drones from Virginia Tech, another very mobile quarterback. And then Noah Fafita, very good in 23, but even with Ted McMillan, he didn't have the same success in 24. So that's kind of my early list. There's a bunch of other guys, Taylor Green, people I need to watch more of, but that's my early quarterback list to kick this thing off.
So that's a good list, right? So now from a draft professor standpoint, I believe that's 15 quarterbacks on the watch list, not including underclassmen, right? So like Dale, like that's huge. So draft professors, thanks you. I do also want to point out to Fafita, right? Noah Fafita's best path to success is Bryce Young succeeding.
Yeah. Very undersized, yes.
Yeah. So you're getting like a Doug Flutie, Bryce Young-sized quarterback there. So if you're cheering for Noah Fafita, you probably want to cheer for Bryce Young to have a good year 3 in Carolina as well.
For sure.
Yeah. So now we're going to pivot to a different position. So this is Draft Professor. We are diving into summer scouting, and we're going to be doing running backs next. Dale, what do you want to tell us about the running backs that you've watched so far?
Good class. Obviously, it's hard to say it's a good class when we just had the one in this season for the 25 draft class. Absolutely loaded. Now, there's some very good prospects. It's not to take anything away from them, but it doesn't seem as deep going in, but we've got a whole year of college football coming up to see who steps it up more. But Jeremiah Love, I think that's everybody's early favorite to be running back 1. So that's the running back out of Notre Dame. There's a bunch of games to watch of him, honestly. I don't think you can go wrong picking any of them, but USC was one I watched where he had 99 rushing yards and 38 receiving. And you want to see a guy hurdle a guy and just keep going down the sideline? That was in that game. He has that more than once, but that was the game versus USC. So he's very exciting. I think he's got 3 down potential. And I think he's a guy when we get to RAS scores and athletic testing. Shout out Kent Lee Platty. He's going to test really well. He's going to be an athletic freak along with how productive he's been at Notre Dame. And they rotate their guys in and out. I'll mention another guy from Notre Dame on this list, not as in depth, but there's a lot to like. There's a lot to love with Jeremiah Love. And he showed toughness in the playoffs. He was injured and he kept playing. They don't get to that national championship game without Jeremiah Love down the stretch. So very good player, very exciting prospect at running back. The next guy, Penn State, Nicholas Singleton. They actually have 2 players, and I'll kind of talk about them a little together. And the Oregon game is the one to watch for both of them. They both had over 100 yards rushing in that same game. That was the Big Ten championship game, and it's just a fun football game to go back and watch again. So that was enjoyable. So he only had 10 carries in that game, 105 yards, 4 catches for 43 yards. So this is Nicholas Singleton. And he's a 5-star recruit guy. He's an excellent pass catcher out of the backfield, and he's fast. So I think the speed, the receiving ability, it all says 3 down potential. But he comes off the field a lot because he's got Katron Allen, who's more of the bruiser type, where he's more of the home run threat. This is the guy you need a yard, he's going to get it. He has that great short yardage ability, but really good contact balance too. And he's going to push and drive a pile. Great lower body leg strength. So Katron Allen, both the Penn State running backs are fun, and they could end up 1-2 in Penn State history for running backs by the end of this season if they just continue the pace they've been at for their careers, which is incredible. 2 guys in the same class to come in and produce like that together and end up 1-2 in school history is special. Next guy on my list, Darius Taylor from Minnesota. Watched the game versus Illinois is one that I liked. In that game, he had 131 rushing yards, 58 more receiving. I do think he has 3 down potential. He's a pretty decent blocker. Vision, ball security, patience, setting up, waiting on his blocks to set up in front of him. He displays all of that at a very high level. Next guy is Mekhi Hughes. This is a transfer from Tulane, and he's transferring to Oregon. So he's kind of taking the place of Jordan James, who went to the NFL. Great burst. I don't think he has the top end breakaway speed. Jordan James didn't either, but he still was able to get multiple big game touchdowns because of their offense. It sets up for a running back to be highly productive, and he was highly productive at Tulane. So Mekhi Hughes is a guy that I'm excited about. 2 running backs from Texas, C.J. Baxter and Quintravian Wisner. Wisner had the big season last year with over 1,000 yards rushing. Baxter was out injured. So he got injured before the season started, missed the whole season. But his freshman year, he was highly productive. Both of those guys can catch the ball. Both of them can hit the home runs. They're going to be a hell of a 1-2 punch in college football at running back. I'll mention just a few more names because I don't want to go on and on because this is a very extensive list. So Jonah Coleman, I think, was talked about by another draft professor recently. So you guys can go back and check that out if you want a little more on him. Justice Haynes transferring to Michigan from Alabama, natural hands, short yardage power. He's kind of behind Jam Miller, who's another guy that I'll mention because he's on the list. Quentin Joyner transferring to Texas Tech from USC. Hasn't had elite production yet, but he's an explosive playmaker. And everybody wanted that kid. And Texas Tech had an incredible portal class. So it says a lot, that how much he was wanted, what kind of talent he is. And he showed that at USC. Just didn't overly produce because they had a good rotation there. One guy I want to talk about is Jaden Ott, though. He's a little lower on my list, but it's with a caveat of he just had an awful season for California. Recently transferred to Oklahoma, so I expect a bounce back. The 2 seasons prior to last year, though, his production was off the charts. Hell of a playmaker, and I could easily see this kid being the biggest riser from my personal board. Other people may already have him higher because if they go back, and I would just say go back and watch his 2023 tape. He was highly impressive in 2023. So if you want to look up Jaden Ott, you want to really scout what kind of talent he is or his ceiling or potential, go watch him from 2023. It was much better in 2024. I think he was dealing with injuries. Cal was just not the best team in general. There was a lot of guys that didn't produce, like J. Michael Sturdivant, who's a receiver going to Florida now. Jadarian Price, I mentioned earlier. That's the other Notre Dame running back. Good lower body strength, leg drive. I don't know if he'll be in this class, but he could be. And I think he could be a mid-round type of guy. Mark Fletcher from Miami, 6'2", 225. I don't necessarily love those guys with the upright running style, but his size, he's got good ball security he needs to work on, and he doesn't force many tackles. But the size, the strength, the leg drive, the ability to get the tough yards, he's got a knack for finding the end zone. There's a lot of go with Mark Fletcher, but without Damian Martinez there, he'll probably get a bigger workload, and we'll see what kind of player he is. It's just somebody on the radar. Le'Veon Moss, Texas A&M, good short area quickness. Demon Claiborne, Rasul Faison. He is a 7th-year guy transferring to South Carolina from Utah State. 469 tackles last year per PFF, so very productive. Dylan Edwards, Kansas State, undersized speedster, but he's a home run threat. Problem with him, he weighs 167 pounds, so the durability, will he hold up at the next level? I don't know. It's hard to bet on a guy like that, and maybe at the end of the process he's up to 180. He needs to get up to 180 somehow, but he's not that tall either. CJ Donaldson transferring from West Virginia to Ohio State. Be curious to see what he plays at on the opposite end because he was listed at 240 at West Virginia. So big bruising back, but I think he's already dropped some weight being in Ohio State strength and conditioning program. So be curious to see what he plays at this year. Maybe he'll be a little quicker, have a little more home run ability. Yeah, Jim, I could go on and on and on and on. There's so many guys. Roman Hemby, Caleb Jackson from LSU, big, powerful guy. Jaheim White also from West Virginia, 5'7", very elusive. Dante Dottle transferred to Kentucky from Nebraska. This is your north-south physical downhill runner. And then Tawee Walker from originally Oklahoma for 2 years, Wisconsin last year, and now he'll be playing for the Bearcats of Cincinnati this year. And he's produced at every one of those schools, and I expect that to continue as he's taken over for Corey Kiner. That's the list.
That's a good list. What are we? I think that was 22 running backs for those keeping score at home. So any draft professor that follows you, they got a tough act to follow because they've got 15 quarterbacks and 22 running backs. And if summer scouting is like playing poker, they have to do better than 22 at running back. That was pretty good. So, and then Dale, I know that when you and I messaged, you still have another list of 22 more running backs to watch.
Yeah, I've got a whole extensive list of every one of these positions. I got to find time to watch these guys at some point before the season starts. Their names I at least like when the season starts, if nothing else. hey, this game's on. Okay, yeah, this guy's from there. Let me go check it out.
Yeah. So this is a unique summer scouting experience here for the Draft Professor because we're not giving you a top 10 board. We're giving you, here's who's on the board. Like we've watched them. We've done maybe a little bit of who's a round 1 versus who's a day 3 guy. We're doing a little bit of that, but right now we're giving you the list. This is the list of who to watch. So again, this is Draft Professors. We are doing summer scouting. I'm here with Dale from Bengals and Brews. And Dale, I think we're going to do wide receivers now, right?
Yes, sir. I'll kick it off with the guy. I got him at the top, but just so everybody, once again, we've talked about this in previous episodes that you've watched. It's going to change a lot. It's more of a watch list than anything else. But my guy that I'm starting at the top with is Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. Go watch the game versus Kansas State. 12 catches, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was Sam Levitt's number 1 target, and he was unavailable and hurt during the playoffs. And obviously, Cam Scatterbo, incredible running back. But had they had Jordan Tyson, I think they definitely win that Texas game. But they still gave a great effort during that game. Great ball tracking, contested catch ability. He was 10 for 15 on contested catch situations last year at 66.7%. And you can move him around. He plays in the slot and out wide almost equally. So he's inside-outside versatility, which is always nice. It's just he's got to clean up some fumbles, and he's got to work on drops. I think he had 7 last year. So it's not terrible for how many targets he sees, but it's definitely something he can get that number down. Next guy I want to talk about is Carnell Tate from Ohio State, who constantly is producing wide receivers. And he was wide receiver 1 behind Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith last year. Still put up over 700 yards doing that. He's great hands, hardly drops a pass ever. And he's a really good blocker. So I won't say that about very many of these receivers because most of them are not very good blockers as of now. But this is a kid who's more than willing and capable to block on the outside, and it helps running backs. It helps the quarterback if he's right. It helps everybody for big plays. So I do want to shout that out for him. And then there's a couple games to watch for him. The game versus Texas in the playoffs. They knew that Texas was going to shift a lot of attention to the other receivers. So he got a lot of targets, made a lot of catches, and was a big part of them being able to pull out that win against Texas. There's also a game earlier in the season against Nebraska. Those are probably his 2 best games from the season. So if you're wanting to get a good scouting report on him, go watch those 2 games. You can't watch this next guy on my list. It's Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. You can watch him from 2023, but last year he was injured. I think he came in for 1 game, re-injured the injury he had like in the first 3 plays. So there's basically nothing to watch for 2024. He is transferring to LSU this year, though. So him and Berrien Brown both. Berrien's on this list, but I won't spend a ton of time talking about him. But both of those guys will be catching passes from Nussmeier. So I think they're going to have a chance. And this is a kid who's like 6'4". So great size, great contested catch ability for Nick Anderson, and really good speed at that size. So if he's healthy this year, I expect a big season. And honestly, he is right in that conversation for early wide receiver 1 for my personal list. Just from that 2023 season was that special to me. It showed what kind of player he can be. So go find really any game from that season. Evan Stewart, put on the Ohio State game the first time because he absolutely destroyed Denzel Burke. He could not. And he got Denzel Burke benched during that game, who was a guy who was just drafted in this draft cycle. He had 7 catches, 149 yards. Denzel Burke could just not keep up with him. Speed is his calling card, but he's good after the catch, good body control. Expected bigger things from him, and Tez Johnson probably got more targets, more publicity than Evan Stewart, and people thought it would be the opposite. So I think it was smart for Evan Stewart to go back another year, and hopefully he can produce this year at Oregon and step up and be great. Guy that did produce at Clemson was Antonio Williams, acceleration, lateral agility. Go watch about any game last year. He was incredible. Kevin Concepcion, I'll mention, transferred to Texas A&M, versatile receiver. They give him the ball on carries, and he's also a return man, so very versatile. Eric Singleton Jr. plays bigger than his size. So he's 5'11", but he plays a lot bigger, and he's got great speed. He's transferring to Auburn from Georgia Tech, I believe. I don't have that down, but I'm pretty sure it's Georgia Tech off the top of my head. Zachariah Branch was at USC, transferred to Georgia. He only weighs 175, but very explosive. Another guy who's a returner, can do a lot of things. It's just a guy you want to get the ball in his hands. Denzel Boston, quite the opposite. 6'4", good route runner, strong hands. He's on the list here. Elijah Surratt from Indiana, highly productive. Followed Coach Cignetti from James Madison to Indiana and produced over 1,000 yards at both places. So you go from a little lower level of competition at James Madison to Indiana, and the Big Ten was very competitive, very good this year, and he continued to produce there. So I expect big things, especially with Fernando Mendoza as his quarterback this year. Jace Brown, Kansas State, big playability, 17 yards per catch last year. Chris Bell's a guy I like, and I'll give some of these guys that I have, because I wanted to get some guys and some places to watch farther down, but I wanted to mention everybody in my order. Chris Bell is game versus Stanford, 9 catches, 112 yards. This is a kid at Louisville. He's never really been like receiver one. This year he's going to be receiver one. But he's always produced. He's got really good size, very physical, 60% contested catch rate, and just watch any of his games down the stretch. But the game versus Stanford was one of his best. Jaden Greathouse, go watch the national championship. He played his best football in the national championship for Notre Dame. Another guy with great size. Contested catch percent was 84.6. And Malachi Fields is another guy on the list, so I'll go ahead and mention him now. Malachi Fields transferring from Virginia. Another guy with great size. I mean, their quarterback can just throw it up to these two guys on the outside. I expect them to throw the ball quite a bit, but they also are stacked at running back. So Notre Dame's going to be a fun team to watch all around. DeAndre Moore Jr., route running, toughness, kid out of Texas. I mean, you throw the ball over the middle, he knows the hit's coming. He don't care. He'll catch it and absorb the hit and get right back up. So I always love that about a receiver. Mekhi Lemon from USC, elite hands, tons of special teams experience, including he's another guy who's a returner. Eugene Wilson III for Florida, 0 drops for his career. So that right there is very impressive. Dane Key transferring from Kentucky to Nebraska, reliable. I think it's a very high floor player. He's 6'3", a guy you can go to on third down. He's going to get you, if you need 7 yards, he's going to get you 7 yards. He's not the most explosive athlete, but he's just a very reliable target. Varian Brown, I mentioned earlier, transferring to LSU from Kentucky. Another return guy, speedster, very electric. Kevin Coleman Jr. is very elusive, 26 missed tackles forced. Jeremy Bernard. So that's a guy from Alabama I could see actually being way higher up on this list. Followed Coach DeBoer from Washington to Alabama last year, had a really good year. Like Carnell Tate, this is probably the other guy who is one of the more willing blockers on the outside and capable of doing it. And he's improved each season. So I expect that to continue. And I think him and Williams will be fun to watch at wide receiver. Nick Harbor, great size, 6'5", South Carolina, could end up another guy I could see being way higher on this list because the physical traits are just rare and they're special for him. I already mentioned Malachi Fields. Caden Lee from Ole Miss. This is more of a speedster, a deep ball guy. Deion Burks. He was at Purdue originally, last year at Oklahoma. I believe he's still at Oklahoma. He's undersized, but he's still competitive at the catch point. And, man, his Purdue tape a couple years ago was electric. So I didn't think he had a very good season for Oklahoma last year, but Oklahoma didn't have a great season. Quarterbacks rotating in and out. So I think this year could be a lot better for him with John Mateer at quarterback. Dejan Stribling, easy for you to say, transferred to Ole Miss, 17 yards per catch. Caleb Douglas, 6'4", stays active, makes tough catches. Kyron Hudson transferred to Penn State, reliable target, hasn't overly produced. Deuce Robinson, 6'6", I could see him ultimately being a tight end. He transferred from USC to Florida State. Hudson Clement, another former walk-on, highly productive at West Virginia. He's transferring to Illinois this year. CJ Daniels, 4 years at Liberty, 1 at LSU, now at Miami, Florida. Great speedster. Ball tracking ability is fantastic. And Dylan Bell, good blocker, drop issues with the Georgia receiver Arian Smith from this draft and also with Dylan Bell. Chris Brazel, the second, 6'5" wide receiver. If you like Deontay Thornton from Tennessee, you're probably going to like him. Brazil. He didn't have the breakout season many expected at Tennessee, but he was very productive at Tulane, I believe, before that. I expect him to have a good season. Noah Rogers transferred from Ohio State to NC State, kind of buried on the depth chart at Ohio State. So got a lot of playing time. Another guy with really good size, really good high pointing ability, good physicality as a receiver. Jared Brown, Coastal Carolina, and now he's at South Carolina. Only had a couple hundred yards last year, but very elusive, good arm length, even though he's only 5'11". Colin Lacey was injured some last year, older prospect, 5'10" at Louisville. Before that, I think he spent 4 years at South Alabama. Jamori Macklin, big playability for Kentucky, was another guy who transferred in to them last year. London Humphreys, he's not even listed as a starter for Georgia, but he produced quite a bit. This is more of your route runner, your slot kind of receiver. He had some drop issues, but I still expect him to get a lot of targets. He may be in the following draft class, but it's just somebody to check out. I could see him end up being their most dependable, reliable player, even though he's not the top guy on the depth chart. And then Kendrick Law transferred to Kentucky from Alabama. Very limited production. He's honestly just on the list because he was a highly rated recruit, and expect him to actually take a leap at Kentucky. Leap of faith with Kendrick Law. Number 40 on the list.
And what also should be noted about the Kentucky wide receivers is some of the Kentucky wide receivers that were there last year transferred to another school.
Yep.
So they have an opportunity that may have not, because I think Barry and Brown switched schools, right?
LSU. Yeah. He switched to LSU.
Yeah. So
and Van Key switched to Nebraska.
Yeah. So the receivers that transferred to LSU to play with Nussmeier, which would specifically be Barry and Brown, and I think there was one or two others. Barry and Brown at LSU, that's going to be a player that I think that's going to shoot up. Like, he's already high.
Yep.
But he's about to go higher. I think we had an early day 3 grade on Brown before he went back to school.
And summer scouting last year, because it was a kid, if you go watch his 23 tape, that I was like second, third round coming in, and he just kind of had a down season. But honestly, their quarterback play was atrocious last year.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out. Dale just listed 40 wide receivers. If I was counting on my fingers fast enough.
I was trying to get through them as fast as I could. I was like, try to get people the names and get them out there for you guys.
Hey, we've already covered close to 50 players in 32 minutes. I think we're doing pretty good. We just gave you a lot of wide receiver names to watch. The Draft Professor spreadsheet, the watch list, has been updated to Dale's promotion to the promoted players. So if you have access to the Draft Professor watch spreadsheet, all of the players that Dale is mentioning now have been updated on the sheet. By the time you listen to this podcast, that sheet's going to have all the right colors with the players and who evaluated them and all that good stuff.
Well, isn't that sheet up to like 1,000 players, which is incredible by you and all the Draft Professors?
So we have a list of 1,000 players that we're sorting through, and the promoted players list is up to 315. So that means that we have 315 players that Dale, Anthony, or some other draft professor has said, I've watched them. We're adding them to the list so others can watch them too. And this is how draft professors kind of like, I have to be able to decide who to add to the draft simulator. And this is also going to kind of govern a lot of the content that draft professors will have starting in September once college football season begins. Because we want to focus on the players that we've watched and liked so far. So that being said, this is the Draft Professors. We are doing summer scouting. I'm here with Dale from Bengals and Brews, and we are going to do some tight ends now. So Dale, we had a really good tight end class in 2025. What's your assessment of the 2026 tight end class?
Potential. It has potential, but it's a lot of unknown. And I mean, there's guys that I have pretty far down on my list that I've seen as people's tight end 1. So I think it's going to be pick your flavor, and a lot of it's early. This is one of the positions I feel like is more projection for a lot of these guys than anything. Now there's some guys that produce, but there's a lot of guys that's like okay, they've never taken the step that we keep thinking they're going to take. And one of the guys that's a big projection for me to talk about right off the bat is Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. I think with Terrence Ferguson off to the NFL, who went in the top 50, a lot of people didn't think he would go in the top 50, but he did, and the talent was there. But Sadiq was still producing at a pretty solid level with him. And one game that I think, he only had 2 catches, and there's a lot of games that he only had a couple catches last year. But the game versus Penn State, that was a Big Ten championship game. He had 30 yards, 2 touchdowns on those 2 catches. And one of them's like a wheel route, and he just goes out. He hurdles the defender and waltzes into the end zone. So that highlight alone, I'm sure you've all seen. But, go watch the game. Go watch a lot of him. But he is a big projection for me. But I really just like the flashes I've seen. I like the athleticism. I like the hands. I think he's going to have a huge, huge season for Oregon. So that's a big projection. A lot of people may not have him that high, but that's why he is a little higher on my list. Lawson Lucky, I don't know how many people have. They probably have Oscar Delp is the guy they're keeping a hold of from Georgia. But I think you've got to keep eyes on both of these players. Lucky actually outproduced him last year when everybody thought Delp was going to be that guy at Georgia at the tight end position. Massachusetts, he had 4 catches, 60 yards, and then 3 catches, 38 yards. That was the last 2 games of the regular season. So part of my projection for him is, playing his best football at the end of the year. And I think he can continue that at Georgia this season. And I expect him to vault his name up these boards quite a bit. Max Clare, first transfer on the tight end list. 3 players in, first transfer. It's usually first player, second player in, you've got to transfer. But tight end position, Max Clare, transferring from Purdue to Ohio State. This is a guy that had a ton of production. Purdue didn't have the best team in the world, and he was basically tight end 1 and wide receiver 1. He was their production for most of the season. The game versus Illinois is one I've watched, and I would suggest you guys go see if you want to see his talent and ability. 6 catches, 133 yards in that game. He's a great seam stretcher, really good run after the catch, good size. I mean, he's just a complete tight end, I think. Probably could perform better as a blocker because he's been asked to do so much as a receiver there. And maybe that's part of coming to Ohio State because he'll definitely get opportunities to improve as a blocker there. Oscar Delp, I mentioned the other guy from Georgia. He's got good hands. He's got good athleticism. I'm just waiting him to take that next step. Everyone thought this is Brock Bowers 2.0. He had under 300 receiving yards last year for Georgia. I know Carson Beck had a down season, but I expected more, and maybe this will be the year he breaks out. Jack Endry is a personal favorite of mine, and part of it's the story for him. So he's a former walk-on at California. This year, he's transferring to Texas. Well, Texas has a pretty good history with tight ends, so they know what they're seeing with this guy. But I just love the fact that a walk-on to a star player by a redshirt freshman. He was highly productive, and even just after the catch, he had 350 yards last year. Most tight ends will take 350 yards for a season. That was his after the catch. I think he had 700 yards last year, somewhere around that for California. So very good player. And if you want to check out a game from him, go watch him versus Pitt. He had 8 catches, 119 yards. A lot of that, he just knows how to find the soft spots in zones. He's a reliable weapon for his quarterback. He gets open. And once he gets the ball in his hands, he turns it upfield immediately. And I love that about a tight end. Eli Stowers, I thought he could have been a day 2 pick this year. Not the biggest guy at tight end. And go watch Alabama. You've probably seen Alabama game when Vanderbilt knocks them off. But he had 6 catches, 113 yards in that game. And he's, like I've mentioned, he's a little undersized, so maybe he's more of an H-back. He's your move tight end. The guy you're going to move around, but you're going to get the ball in his hands and let him make plays. And he did a lot of that for Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt last season. Joe Royer. So he transferred from Ohio State. I think he was there 3 or 4 years, and he never really played. He just didn't get much playing time. And he really broke out last year once he transferred to Cincinnati. A lot of people also thought he would come out. I think he had like 500 receiving yards. Don't know if that's correct off the top of my head, but quite a bit. And with that, he had 0 drops the whole season. So you talk about a reliable target, a good weapon, quarterback, tight end returning for Cincinnati. I expect him to pick up where he left off. And he's a pretty good blocker too. So the all-around tight end, I think Joe Royer could be one of those guys that people are like, oh, this is the guy I really like. So when you're watching Joe Royer, I definitely think a lot of people could be very high on him. Justin Jolly, good contested catchability, route running, alignment versatility. I liked a lot about him. Luke Hawes, that's the one I kind of mentioned earlier. He's transferring to Ole Miss from Arkansas, but I've seen a lot of people have him as their tight end 1, and I was a little underwhelmed. He's a good route runner, but it's just like, I don't know. He's undersized. He just – I didn't love what I saw from him, but at Ole Miss, he should see a lot of targets. They throw the ball a lot. So maybe I'll fall in love in the fall, but right now he's a little lower on my list than I thought he would be before I went in and watched him a little more. Jack Velling, he transferred to Michigan State from Oregon State last year. Had a solid season, but his touchdown production, I know, dropped from like 8 touchdowns down to 1. So that it's just, but he's a big target, and I expect that to jump back up. Very smooth route runner, just smooth movement, big bodied guy that I think will have a really good season for Michigan State. RJ Maryland, SMU, it really sucked that he got injured. His season ended early. SMU made a great run to the playoffs. I think had they had him in the playoffs, they probably would have performed a little better. Very good athlete, moves so well. They love just to get the ball in his hands. So RJ Maryland's a guy that I think could really bounce back this season and move up some boards. Tanner Koziel, 6'7", big target, reliable target. I think he's at Ball State, and then I think he went to Wisconsin. Now I think he transferred to Houston. And Wisconsin and Houston has all been in the same offseason, so that's always fascinating when that happens. And it does happen nowadays with the transfer portal. Daquan Wright is another tight end that I suggest watching. Really good size from Ole Miss. I think he's like 255. So this is a guy that can block. He can do stuff in the receiving game, but he's probably going to be more of like, hey, you block, Luke Halls, you go catch passes for Ole Miss this season, if I had to guess, as far as their 2 tight ends. John Michael Gillenborg. This is a kid out of Wyoming. Very athletic. He moves more like a wide receiver, and he is undersized, so he almost has a little bit of wide receiver size. But for the tight end position, he just moves so well, and he makes tons of plays for Wyoming, and I'm excited to see what he can do this season. Sam Roush, physical runner after the catch, pretty good blocker out of Stanford. Brett Norfleet, a lot of people expect him to take a huge leap last year from Missouri because he showed some flashes the year before. Didn't quite happen. But he's 6'7", so he's a big target, contested catchability, and really good straight line speed for a guy that size. Gabe Burkle, catch radius, football IQ out of Iowa State. Addison Ostrenga, you got to put an Iowa tight end on the list. So this is Iowa's tight end. Addison Ostrenga, really reliable hands, hasn't produced too much to this point, but he's shown some flashes, and just being an Iowa tight end, you got to be on the draft list. Next guy, Jack Peterson. Very physical, hasn't produced a ton at UCLA, but could be a breakout candidate this year. And then Riley Williams, Miami, Florida, similar situation. Miami, Florida has been behind some pretty good players that's come out the last couple of years, including Elijah Arroyo in this past draft. And I expect him to be their next guy. And he has very good speed, big playability. You know, he made some good plays this year, and I expect him to really take off and fill that Elijah Arroyo role in their offense and be highly productive. So that is my 20 tight ends.
Wow. Like, we're cooking. So a significant amount of summer scouting, like we said, is watching players. So Dale just gave us that. You said that was about 25 tight ends.
20. Yeah.
20. So that's good. And similar to what Dale said, this is probably not going to be the tight end class of last year. On average, I believe 22 tight ends get drafted every year. Whether
I think it's 14. I think the last 5 years has been 14 as the average.
Is it? Okay. I will go double check my math. I thought we were in the 20s.
Hey, maybe it was. I haven't added this year, so you could be correct.
Yeah. So we are pivoting, and like we had mentioned earlier, we are recording this on Mother's Day, and this is a very early watch list of players Dale has watched that are in the draft, and I believe the next position we want to talk about are offensive tackles, right, Dale?
Yeah, it is. And I think this has a chance to be a very good offensive tackle class. It was a little lackluster this year, I thought. The year before, it was offensive tackle heavy. And then this past season, I didn't like the class. I didn't think it was very deep. I think this class for next year in 2026 has a chance to be much deeper. Pick your guy from Utah, right? Utah's got a couple guys, Spencer Fanoa and Caleb Lomo, that are on a lot of people's list. A lot of people are higher on Caleb Lomo early on. I actually like Spencer Fanoa a little better. Both guys are undersized. They need to add some functional strength. They need to bulk up a little bit on their frames, but both are pretty good athletes. For Fanoa, though, just fantastic athlete. He's played both left and right tackle, and I just love the effort he plays with. There's things he needs to clean up for sure, but and he needs to bulk up. But Spencer Fanoa, his tape is just fun. Just go watch any Utah tape. Watch both tackle prospects. So if you got a game on, and a lot of times you can go on YouTube even, and you can put in, Utah O-line versus, and if you just do that, it'll pop up, a game or two for that. So that's one way that you can do it, and you can immediately focus on offensive line that way. And in the same game, you can spend half that time watching the left side, next half watching the right, because you got two guys that are going to be on a lot of these early watch lists. So you want to get eyes on them. Francis Malagoa, probably saying your name wrong. Sorry, sir. I know you had a brother as a linebacker in this past draft, but this is a guy who's played right tackle, like a top 5 recruit coming out of high school. He's been a day one starter since he's been at Miami. Had some ups and downs. Biggest thing he needs to clean up is penalties, but I love when they get him out on the move, and he's got that finishing mentality, and just a big-bodied guy with tons of talent still and untapped potential. I mean, he's shown a lot, played a lot of football there, but I think his best football is ahead of him, and that could very easily be this season. Cage Casey, Boise State. It's rock solid. It's almost easy for him. So this guy, I'm like, okay, is this guy slow? Is he a good athlete? Because it's just like he's so in control of everything he does. It appears that way. He only allowed 6 pressures last year, 0 sacks. He's just a consistent technician type of offensive lineman at tackle. So I really like Cage Casey. Judd Bowery might have the highest upside in this entire class, honestly. And that's saying a lot, because I came on here and I said I really like this class. Very smooth mover. And coaches and teammates just rave about what kind of person and player he is. Caden Proctor. Now, this is one who's going top 5 in these early mock drafts. And for me, I'm like, I don't see a first rounder right now if he's going to stay at tackle. The foot speed scares me and concerns me with him. I think he needs to drop some weight, because he's a mountain. He's like 6'7", 370 or something crazy. So if he could drop some weight, it would probably help him to play tackle. As of right now, I think he may have to kick into guard if he's going to be this big. But massive O tackle, and you guys might all love him more than me. I'm not there yet. I need to see a little more consistent performance as a pass blocker from him. Ethan Anyawa. I'm probably mispronouncing that, Jim, and everybody else. There's some tough names in this group, but he's transferring to Ohio State from Rice. Go watch the game versus Texas, because that was probably Rice's best competition last year. And, yeah, there's times he got beat, but I thought he held up pretty well against a good Texas defense. So and he only gave up 9 pressures all season, so pretty solid player. Jennings Dunker from Iowa plays a very good pad level, can block on the move and at the second level. So I like the way he moves, and Iowa is constantly producing solid offensive linemen. Very O-line coach, been there like 20 years. So very highly thought of in the NFL and scouting community. Isaiah World transferring from Nevada to Oregon. Long athlete, basketball background, so he can absolutely move. Won't surprise me if this is a guy in the first round conversation after the season. Monroe Freeling. Hasn't played a ton of football at Georgia, but they've had some injuries, and he's had to come in. He's kind of been behind Xavier Truss and some other guys. But got really quick feet. I like him. Trey Zune, the third, tons of experience, entering his 4th year out as a starter at Texas A&M. Riley Mallman, good arm length, team leader. I think he's like 6'7", pretty powerful run blocker out of Wisconsin. Blake Miller from Clemson, very durable, played a ton of football there, really quick feet. Brian Parker II, only allowed 10 pressures all season, 0 sacks given up. That's a kid out of Duke. Austin Barber from Florida, really good grip strength, aggressive finisher, and good knee bend. Caleb Tiernan, 4-year starter at Northwestern and very good blocker at the second level. Xavier Chaplin, good athlete, long arms. He's transferring to Auburn this year from Virginia Tech. So he moves so well, and you can get him out and do a lot of things in space. Very athletic at the tackle position. Just got some things he needs to clean up. Micah Pettis, big-bodied run blocker with tons of experience for Ole Miss. Alex Harkey, he's transferring from North Texas. So, honestly, he's on this list. He's graded out very well per PFF and things like that. This is one of the guys I've probably seen the least of because there's just not a lot of North Texas tape that I have currently. But he's transferring to Oregon, so he's going to be on a much bigger stage, much bigger competition week in and week out. So I'm excited to see what he can do. But he's very athletic, and I think ultimately he may be a guard in the NFL, but he's on my early tackle list because that's what he's played, and I think what he's projected to play to start with at Oregon. Howard Sampson, huge guy, very stout anchor, mauler in the run game. He is transferring to Texas Tech from North Carolina. I wanted to like him more, but very concerned with him as a pass protector right now. The foot speed, he's a big-body guy. I mean, in the run game, I love him, but it's everything else. So we'll see what he can do at Texas Tech. J.C. Davis, Illinois. He transferred there a couple years ago, I believe, from like New Mexico State, something like that. Could be wrong on that one. Good hand usage, finishing, mentality. So just knows how to play the position the right way, always in the right spots, always knows how to get his hands in the right spots, his feet in the right spots. It's all coordinated together. PJ Williams, SMU, very quick feet, and he's played over 2,000 snaps. So he's a big part of SMU. He's one of those guys that have helped build that program to playoff contender as they were last year. Elijah Pritchett, this is one transferring to Nebraska from Alabama. He's got a wide base. He was a very highly regarded recruit. Did not have a very good season for Alabama. Gave up tons of pressures, tons of sacks last year. But the talent is there. So he's a little lower on my list. I've seen some early mocks have him as a first-round guy, and I'm like, based on what? I mean, I know a lot of this is projection early on, but I'm just like, this is pure projection for him because he was awful last year. He should not sniff first round. Monroe Mills, the guy I really liked, older prospect. He's a captain. He's a team leader type of guy. Only allowed 7 pressures. He was transferring to Louisville this year. Problem is, he just got hurt in spring practices, so he is going to miss the entire season. I still think where he's an older prospect, this is probably his last year. There's not going to be anything to watch on him, but I'll at least mention the name because his tape was really good. Tristan Lee, very good athlete from Clemson. I don't even want to try to say this name. Fa'alili Fa'amo. See, if I had Parker here, he was good. That's probably completely wrong, Jim, but it was worth a shot. I gave it a shot. Very quick feet, active hands. I think he has like a basketball background as well. He's got a lot to work on. Fernando Carmona, he's actually moving to guard this year. I seen at least listed on the depth chart for Arkansas because he played tackle for them last year. He didn't have a great season after transferring, I believe, from San Jose State before that. But he's very physical. He looks for work, seeks action. So there's some things to like. And I think moving him to guard would probably be best for his career because his tape as a tackle that I had watched to put on this list, it's just not up to par. So the move to guard is smart. Carter Smith played for Indiana, positional versatility, team leader, very durable, played an absolute ton of snaps for those guys. And then, honestly, the last 2 on this list I could see being much, much higher. And I think they already are on a lot of people's list. Both Penn State tackles. Nolan Rucci, who was a highly rated recruit to Wisconsin before he transferred to Penn State. He hadn't really played a lot of football till last year. And in the playoffs and down the stretch, he was playing his best football. So I think now that he's starting to get snaps, I think he's going to be much better this year. And Drew Shelton, really good athlete, position versatile. I expect big things from both of those Penn State guys, especially with just all the talent that team has in general. And that's my 30 offensive tackles.
So, again, that's a good watch list. If you have 30 offensive tackles and you think Dale missed a 31st, drop it in the chat. Yeah. Let us know. Let us know, draft community. That was a good list of 30. One of the things I've already caught, and this is great, right? Because Anthony covered some offensive tackles when he did this last week. And I can already tell that there's guys that are going to be divisive, or
we
call it like high variance, where somebody says top 50, somebody else is saying day 3. So we definitely have some discussions in the future, but that's not the point of today.
Right. There's so much still to watch, and that's something I want to, just drive home again. This is watching these guys for like 1 to 2 games. Some of them I can only find one game on, So it's very early in the process on this, but it's more of a watch list for you guys. So you get the names, and Jim will be linking all that stuff. So you'll have this list of names that you can check out at any time.
Yeah. And to echo what Dale just said, this is Draft Professors. We are building our watch list for the 2026 draft. We are recording this on Mother's Day, and we have one more offensive position to go, and that is guards or interior offensive linemen. So, Dale, tell us about some of the interior linemen that you have watched and liked.
I'll start with Armaj Reed Adams from Texas A&M. He's an older prospect. I believe he's going into his 6th year. But, man, this is a nasty guy. I like that. That's what – I know Tyler Booker didn't test well this past year, but on his tape, that's what I love. This is just a mean, nasty dude, and I want guys like that on my offensive line that'll just go and attack and finish. I mean, he'll drive you 10 yards out of bounds. I love that on his tape. So Armaj Reed Adams is a personal favorite of mine. And it's not just the run game. He only allowed 10 pressures and 1 sack last season. So he's very capable as a pass blocker as well. Caden Green. So originally at Oklahoma, he transferred to Missouri, and he'll be his 2nd year at Missouri this year. Plays with good patience as a pass blocker. Only allowed 1 sack in 2 seasons. And because he played quite a bit early for Oklahoma as well, and then transferred and has played for Missouri. It was closer to home. One of those things you can kind of understand. And he won't even turn 21 until November. So he's played some high-level football at 19 and 20. So he's one of those guys. I've had a tough time on who was going to be first, but then I just see the way Reed Adams finishes, and I'm like, he's my early favorite. I got to put him over Caden Green. But if you see my list out there and it has Caden Green first, I already changed my mind on one of these very early summer scouting here. I'm allowed to change my mind the more I watch. Third guy I want to mention, I'm not going to even try his full first name. I just call him Vega Ione from Penn State, 6'4", 348. So you talk about a big, thick dude at guard. And he's actually seen some snaps, not tons of snaps, at all 5 positions on the O-line. So I always love that position versatility. But the majority of those are at guard, and he is going to be a guard, and he's going to be a guard in the NFL. I think it's very safe to say that. He only allowed 6 pressures all of last year, and he's just one of those nasty, mean, mauler guys in the run game. So another two-way talent there. And Penn State, I mean, we talked about some guys in the last episode at offensive tackle. Penn State has a very, very good line and tons of talent everywhere. Next guy on the list, Emmanuel Pregnone, probably mispronouncing your name as well, sir, but transferring from USC to Oregon this year. Very good athlete, strong anchor, hasn't given up a sack for 2 seasons. So I expect him to have a great season for Oregon as a pass blocker. And he's a guy I could see be, right in the conversation to be the top guy taken because he's very athletic and he's like 320. Chase Basantis, the other guard at Texas A&M. Yeah, he plays left guard. Reed Adams plays right guard. But quick feet, athletic, just needs to put it all together. Jaden Roberts, this is a guy who's Feldman freak list, workout warrior, high character person off the field, all those things. Very, very good as a run blocker, but he has so much work still as a pass protector. A lot of people thought he'd be in the last draft, but he's just so far behind on his technique, his hand placement. There's so many things he's got to clean up if he wants to climb up draft boards. But I'm still a little high on him because he's a freak. He's one of them Feldman freak guys. And it's exciting because they got high potential. DJ Campbell, this guy's played a ton of football, 6'3", 343 out of Texas. He's got natural leverage, very thick. And another guy, one of the things I like most, he's nasty in the run game. And he as a pass protector, okay, he's not just going to set back. He's going to go, he's going to attack, and he's going to seek work. And I think that's important. because that's when your quarterback extends plays, and they're going to have Arch Manning at quarterback, so they're going to have a guy extending plays. You need to go find work and be active, and that's what I like about DJ Campbell. Man, another tough name here, Jim. This is really this watch list. And I looked at the pronunciation for this one, and I still don't know if it's correct. Fabichi Wiwu and it's spelled W or Nwaiwu, but it said it was pronounced Wiwu, and I didn't know if I was just being pranked when I was reading that pronunciation or if that's how it's pronounced. But
I thought you did a pretty good job with that. Let's see if I can do that one. Fabichi Nuewu.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if the N's silent because like on the pronunciation guide that I seen, it said it was. Okay. It was like it was like wee woo or way woo, and the N was silent, and I'm like, I don't know. Hey, we'll find out this season because he's expected to be a big piece for Oklahoma's line. Very physical finisher as well. I have Ernest Green III listed on my guards. He's played tackle. I think Georgia still has him projected to play tackle, but I already have him on my guard list because I see no way this kid sticks at tackle in the NFL. So, and you see that a lot. You see a lot of tackles kick into guard. It's all very, very fluid, and what teams want at the next level is much different. But I definitely think he's going to play his best inside. He's not been very good at left tackle for them, but that's where they've wanted to play him. He's given his best. He's done what he could, but I think if they kicked him inside the guard, he'd be a lot better. Josh Thompson transferring to LSU from Northwestern, only allowed 8 pressures, but like when I'm watching him, I just kept noticing their quarterback. They had one of the most mobile, athletic quarterbacks that would just constantly, like if there was pressure, he would just run away from it. So I'm like, okay, how much of this 8 pressures and 0 sacks was the quarterback and not some of these linemen like him and Caleb Tiernan? But he's playing for LSU and blocking for Nussmeier this year, so I don't think there's going to be any excuses. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Nussmeier, while he's athletic, he's not that athletic. Another tough name. Gosh, I'm going to butcher this one. Tanoa Togiai. And I only know the last name a little bit because I think he's a cousin of a guy who played for the Buckeyes. So Togiai is the last name. This is another, we talked about some guys from Utah at offensive tackle, but this is a guy that plays guard for them. Former basketball player. He was actually recruited, and he's like 6'6". He was recruited to be a defensive end originally at Utah. So he's got really good feet, lateral agility. He's got all the movement skills, but probably does need to still add a little bulk to his frame, get a little thicker. Hit the weight room, buddy. Wendell Moe Jr. transferring from Arizona to Tennessee, 6'2", 339. So you just look at the list of measurements, and it's like he's a meatball. So his name, like the little meatball, Meatball Mo. I think that's a great nickname for this guy. I don't know if he'll like it, but it's Meatball Mo. Joshua Braun, 6th-year senior, transferred to Kentucky from Arkansas this season. He's got a huge frame. I think he's like 6'6", 338. Only allowed 8 pressures last year for Arkansas. He's been around a long time. I don't know. Even the 8 pressures, that it seemed like some of that was Taylon Green being magical at quarterback for them as well. Tomas Rymick transferred to Virginia Tech from West Virginia. Played over 2,000 snaps. Very high effort, athletic pass blocker at the guard position. Jeremiah Wright at Auburn, 6'5", 333, stout anchor, great upper body strength. Only allowed 8 pressures last year as well. Inez Cooper, Miami, Florida, 6'6", 350. So you talk about a guy who can absolutely maul people in the run game, and he's played over 2,100 snaps, so tons of experience there. He could be a guy that could really move up boards, and Miami should have a very good line, even though Jalen Rivers is now a Cincinnati Bengal. As you can see here, I like the Bengals a little bit if you look behind me. Nick Sharp, transferring to South Carolina from Wake Forest, very just disciplined, patient technician type of player at the guard position. Joe Bruner, good grip strength, 0 sacks allowed for Wisconsin last year in 2024. I think I watched him versus Bama, which is kind of the good and the bad. I should probably watch him versus someone not named Alabama because I might like him a little more than I did watching him versus Alabama. Dylan Wade played tackle for Auburn last year, but he has played guard and tackle, and I think ultimately he's going to be a guard because he's a little undersized. I think he's like listed at 6'3", 303. So I definitely think his future is a guard, and even then he's not the biggest guy at that spot, but really good mirroring ability at the guard position as a pass protector. Micah Morris, 6'4", 330. And this is one I know, Anthony, that you've had on for summer scouting, one of the draft fanatics. We've kind of talked on Twitter and stuff, and he talked about how much he likes him. And I said, I just can't have him higher right now, Anthony. I said, he's played like 800 total snaps in his career. I said, but I do see the talent and potential. When he's had to fill in, he's played over 400 each of the last 2 years. He's graded out well, and he's never surrendered a sack. So I understand why any other draft fanatic guy would have him higher. I said, for me, I just need to see him be the full-time starter for a season. But I do think that's definitely one to watch. I don't think Anthony is wrong by any means in his assessment of the player. Ben Coleman, older prospect for Arizona State. I'm actually probably going to have to switch him to center because he is making that move for them this year, but he played guard for Arizona State last year, and he's like a 6th, 7th year guy, so he's played a ton of football. Pretty good blocker, grades out well per PFF, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see the switch to center because he is undersized, and I think center is probably his future, so I'm excited that they made that switch for him personally. And then Walker Parks out of Clemson, very aggressive, blocks well on the move, and over 2,800 snaps. I mean, this guy, that may be the most, I guess I've seen, we had the kid from North Carolina this past year, Jim Lampkin. He had, I don't even remember what it was, like 3,500, 4,000, something ridiculous. But this guy already has 2,800 snaps entering the 2025 season for Clemson.
That's going to be, I think, like you said, that's always a really good factor. If an offensive lineman has 2,000 snaps and we still have a year to play.
Yeah.
That's a lot of tape to evaluate. NFL evaluators like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And durable, right? It shows like this is a guy, because these guys get dinged up. That means you played through it.
Yep.
Shows your toughness. And you haven't been benched.
Yeah, and like Dale, we just went through 120 players around every offensive position. And as I was counting, 40 of them were not on the draft professor spreadsheet when we started.
Hey, they'll be on there now, though, won't they, Jim?
They literally, I was updating the sheet as you were talking. So as I heard the name, I'm like, okay, and I do what I do and I add it so everybody can see it. Dale, do you want to take a few minutes and introduce yourself in case there's somebody that doesn't actually know who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Dale Altman. On Twitter, I actually interact more under the at Bengals Brews, which is down here on the screen. So if you want to give me a follow or whatever, DM me, talk ball. I love talking draft. I do a draft guide for Project Game Day. It's a charity that I'm part of with 8 other guys that we started. So what we do is we get raise money throughout the year and things. We just had a draft event on Friday of the draft where we raised a bunch of money. And then we take that money. It goes directly. We're a 501(c) charity. It goes directly to military veterans and active duty military and individuals with disabilities. We get them to Bengals games. We pay for like their parking. We give them like X amount of money for however they want to spend it. Whether that's parking or concession or whatever. Darth Bengal, one of the guys that's part of it, gives them like a custom made chain that he has, that he makes on his own, gives that stuff to him. We usually have food. We've had some good, and we get them down to our tailgate in lot 1. They go down, we feed them. We always have food provided there for them. And then they have them and a guest get tickets to the game. And last year was the first year that we did this. We just started it, and this will be the second year. And last year, we did every home game, but we were also able to send, because you get these stories and you get these people that come in and it's like, okay, well, this is a go. Oh, and you want to get that. Oh, let's get them. So we added, 3-4 more different people and their other tickets. So we probably had total, probably close to 12 different sets of people that we were able to get to Bengals games and have an experience that otherwise they might not be able to do without us. And it's honestly, I say it's us that started it, but it's everybody that helps us fundraise and shows up to the draft event and helps us raise money. It's incredible. It's an incredible community to help and fun thing for me to do to help someone else.
Yes, and I have been to a Project Game Day event. I showed up. Dale did a draft special, and it was at Midwest Barbecue, right?
Yeah, that was actually Bengals and Brews live podcast there,
okay.
And then which all of the guys that are part of the YouTube show Bengals and Brews, we do Monday, Friday, 3:30. But all the guys are also part of Project Game Day.
Okay, and I have guested on Dale's podcast before. I have also guested with Dale at the same time on Strawberry Ice's Bengals podcast. So those are definitely two Bengals content creators. Draft Professor audience, please check them out. I know that there are a lot of Bengals fans that watch this channel because if I put any non-positive Bengals tweets,
they're on it.
Always a response. Always.
Yeah.
Like if I don't tier Joe Burrow and Josh Allen just right, Rule the Jungle is triggered. So so definitely give Dale a follow. Dale was one of my earliest follows for draft content on Twitter. I think I've been following you for probably 3 to 5 years. We just started podcasting with each other, let's say within the last 7 to 8 months, but it's been a good ride to follow your content. I do have Dale's draft guide. So for $5, donate to Project Game Day. You get all the updates. So you can buy the draft guide now, and you're going to get all the updates.
Not yet. I sent you the early copy for this because I'm not through defense at all. So like that is like I haven't even got to I'm working through the defense right now. Okay. But that was the last.
Dale doesn't want your money. No,
not yet. Not yet.
As
soon as I get through defense, and that's why I'm so far ahead too, because the sooner I can get it out, I just asked for $5 to Project Game Day, and the money goes 100% to the things that I was talking about. And I've done that for 2 years and raised like a couple $1,000 total for that through just doing the draft guide.
Okay, and you can follow the channel. Where are we? Right there. At NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. We have daily draft content for you. So what you're getting in the month of May is primarily who the watch lists are. Here are the players to watch. Dale and I are recording, again, today is May 11th. It is Mother's Day. This recording is going to get broken up and published Monday through Saturday. So there's going to be a different position every day. And then starting in June, you will see Draft Professor slowly ramp up. And what I mean by that is we're probably going to be doing some university deep dives starting in June. So like we can do Clemson, Ohio State, the schools that have a lot of players in the draft. We're going to have multiple draft professors, Dale included, kind of vet what does everybody think of all the Clemson guys? What does everybody think of all the Ohio State guys? Because one of the things that we try to do at Draft Professors, we don't want to be the hype. We don't want to be the people saying somebody's going in round 1 of a mock when we don't evaluate them there. We want to talk about the guys that we like and the players that we evaluate and we like. Those are the guys that we'll put in round 1. So we try to be like that, but in order to do that, we have to begin to figure out, like, PFF has the player graded high, but none of us see it. And
right.
We're trying to see if we know what those stories are going to be on this draft cycle. So that process will start in early June and probably continue through most of the summer. Dale has talked about doing it. David from Philadelphia Eagles News is going to do that on Mondays. I think Drew is, and I think Owen is. So on Mondays, we're going to have at least 4 people kind of deep diving Clemson in early June is the first school.
And it's loaded. And that school is loaded with talent for 2026.
Yeah, and I think I think we covered 2 of the 5 players on this because Clemson may have 5 first-round picks with Cade Klubnik and Antonio Williams, offensive players that you and I talked about today.
Yeah.
And then they also have several players on the defensive side. And if you haven't heard about them yet, just go to the Draft Professor channel and watch the other podcasts.
Yep. Yeah, and even some of the guys I mentioned, Walker Parks and Blake Miller on the O-line guys, like they've got just they're not first, I wouldn't consider them early first round, but some people like Blake Miller quite a bit like that. I've seen him in some mocks that high. So they are just stacked. I mean, they've got a corner, they've got, and there's going to be more guys probably that step up this year that haven't even really played, but they got a ton of returning guys that are very highly thought of.
Yeah. So we are going to close this down, and you will see these recordings all throughout the week, Monday through Friday. 10 p.m. Eastern is when they typically air. And then if you want to watch the whole episode, you have to come back on Sunday. So on Sunday, we will air this episode in its entirety in case, 10 minutes of Dale at a time isn't enough for you.
Yeah, I think it's plenty. I think it's probably best.
Cool. Dale, thank you very much.
Thank you
for these 75 podcasters at the Draft Professor, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the podcast again tomorrow.